Hello, everyone. Hello. Are you tired? Was it a long day? Okay. So I hope that you already know the title of the session, Empowering Youth Through Sustainable Skills and Decent Work for Just Transition. So I would like to ask you like a question, simple question. When you hear um, skills, what are the keywords that come to your mind? Can anybody randomly like tell what are the keywords when you hear skills, no, learning, knowledge, practice, ability, capacity, and oh, and what do you think, young guys? We have here what, soft skills. Sorry, mastering. Um, okay. I think it's a thing we all think about, right? When we hear skills. Okay, what do you actually visualize when you hear green jobs? What comes to your like before your eyes when you hear green jobs? Recycling. That's not perhaps the best green jobs. Innovation. Solar plants. Regeneration. And sorry, eco-friendly. What else? Traditional knowledge. Interesting. Sustainability. But I was just trying to learn more from our youngsters here because this session is all about you young people. And yes, it's more like, I believe that it's more like an intergenerational dialogue that we are going to have in few minutes. But I was just trying to warm you up, and I hope that you are already like warmed up and ready to start the session. Should we start officially? Sure. Thank you. So yeah, it's an absolute honor to welcome all of you to this important thematic session organized by the Children and Youth Major Group, which I represent, the German Federal Ministry for Environment, Nature, Conservation, Nuclear Safety, and Consumer Protection, the German Agency for the International Cooperation, and Go for SDGs from UNEP. We gather today with a shared purpose to advance the integration of sustainable consumption and production practices with sustainable skills and decent work, particularly for youth and other marginalized communities. In a world where the environment is at a tipping point and unemployment is ever existent problem, the youth play a critical role in shaping the future of our work. The Green Just for Youth Pact, launched as a legacy initiative from the Stockholm Plus 50 by UNEP, ILO, and UNICEF, is a powerful step towards a just and inclusive green transition. This pact has already laid the groundwork for something transformational, creating 1 million green jobs, new green jobs, greening existing ones, and fueling the entrepreneurial spirit of our youngsters around the globe. But today is more about the numbers. It's about systems change that all of our young people are demanding from across the world. It's about how we can harness sustainable consumption and production practices, whether reducing food waste, rethinking textile and fashion, and repurposing our plastics to create not just jobs, but meaningful and dignified livelihoods in high impact sectors that will define the future. It's about ensuring that young people are not left behind, but instead are fully equipped to lead, innovate, and thrive in green economy that we are building now. This is a moment of collaboration. Governments, businesses, corporates, educators, major stakeholder groups must work together to ensure that the transition to a green economy is not only environmentally sound, but also socially inclusive. Let this session be a hub for exchange of ideas, innovative solution, and strategic partnerships. Thank you for your presence and commitment, and I look forward to these insightful discussions. Let's seize this moment together. Welcome once again, and obviously thanks to all of our partners who we are actually co-organizing this session. Now I have a noble responsibility to invite the next speaker, Mr. Vinicius Pinheiro, Director of International Labor Organization Office in Brazil. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Suhai, and good afternoon. That is where we can live well. So environment and climate change was on the top of the list. And second, we want a job. We want an income. We want a job, not only any type of job, but we want a decent job. And for the ILO, decent job is the one that is a formal job that provides you guarantees that you have access to labor rights, to social protection, that you are free to negotiate with your employer on the conditions of work. We call it collective bargaining. That's free of discrimination. That's free of child labor. It's free of forced labor. So it's not any type of job, but a job that provides you a meaning for your life. So these are the things that are that were among the top. You see top 5 concerns that youth around the world they raised. But the good news is that both things can be reached together. Actually, they are both part of the solution. And this is something that, in particular, in the early stages of the discussions about the environmental tradition, there was a lot of backlash coming from, in particular, from the productive sector. Still, there is, about the number of jobs that will be lost and the number of sectors, the business that will be closed. But what we have shown with our studies is that the the environmental transition has a net positive effect in jobs. For example, the latest study have shown that 8.9 million jobs can be created from here to 2030 if you transition to a low carbon economy. In Latin America, our study was that 15,000 jobs could be created. But of course, and the reason for that is because the environmental friendly sectors, they are more intensive in jobs. Now just think about, for example, oil platform in the middle of the ocean. Do you know how many people are employed there? Around 100 people, and they produce 80,000 gallons per day, and it's around 7 million cubic meters of gas per day. And of course, after that, there is a kind of supply chain that's quite very limited as well. We're controlled by 3 or 4 companies, at least in Brazil. Now, just think about the electric sector or the photovoltaic sector. Now, how many people are employed from the production of solar panels to distribution of solar panels, from the installation of solar panels, small businesses? So it's a totally different economic model with a huge impact. We have also done some studies showing that for each dollar invested in the green economy, you generate 50% more jobs than for the dollar invested in the fossil fuel economy. So the numbers are there. And shows clearly that we actually, by investing in the green economy, you're also tackling unemployment, you're also generating opportunities, in particular for young people. But of course, this doesn't happen for granted. It's not a granted issue. We don't think that there'll be an invisible hand that suddenly will shift people from one place to the other. Because we know that invisible hands actually are there to hold back changes, right? So they're much more the inertia side than the changing side. So we need some policies to be put in place. And the first one is skills. Now, exactly what Zuhai has mentioned. So we need people to be trained for the new jobs that are coming up. Not only the environmental sector, but the digital sector. And this is actually one of the main problems that we are having now. And not here. In China, for example, over the last 3 years, there were 2 million jobs generated in the environmental sector, and they lost 600,000 jobs in the fossil fuel. And there is a huge problem in terms of finding people for those jobs, to fulfill those jobs. And this is happening everywhere. So there's a lot of job offers. They are not fulfilled. They're not filled because there's not people are not qualified for the jobs. So a huge investment in skills. This is at the core of our pact. Now we want to work on curricula, work with universities, technical vocational training, institutions and companies, understand the needs and bridge. There's gaps. We also have here with UNICEF a pact in Brazil as well, supporting the government in terms of understanding better the needs of the market and having the education systems prepared to work with the young people and getting them ready to to take those jobs. So skills is one. The second one is social protection. Of course, when you lose a job in one end, and you have to migrate to the other end, you need a kind of buffer scheme. Employment insurance, social protection systems, cash transfer schemes that need to be there, to rescue people from perhaps losing their jobs, for and then and then helping them surviving, navigating through the transition until they get a job at the other end. Because you need to be frank about this discussion as well. Let's not be cynical. There will be people they'll be losing their jobs, and there'll be business that will be closing. But the opportunities that are arising are much, uh, are much many more jobs the ones that will be destroyed. But this transition has to be managed well, and that's what we call just transition. So first skills, second social protection, third employment policies. That means employment intermediation. That means public employment services, and other types of employment policies that should be put in place. And fourth, social dialogue. And this is all what the ILO is about. ILO is a tripartite organization, have workers and employers and governments in our board, and we discuss policies now that regulate, that promote decent work for all across the globe. And we believe that by chatting, by dialoguing, by putting heads together and trying to find common solutions, you first you become more sustainable as well in your decisions now because they have legitimacy. So let's, for example, shut down uh, a car plant that's based on fossil fuel, and let's perhaps build another one to build electric cars. Okay, so let's discuss with the workers, employers, and workers what should we do. So some of them will need to be, reskilled. Others, unfortunately, they need to be, fired. But then let's find a solution. There's a time frame for that. So all these things can be part of a collective agreement. And for those who won't have a job, perhaps they'll have access to social protection. They'll be reskilled and and put in another type of occupation. And this is what one of the miracles of the social dialogue. So you can really find solutions. Everybody is in agreement, and then you put policies. Then there is also a fifth element that was mentioned also in the first panel is policies related to equality and equity. So there's a huge distribution effect in this transition, in particular for women. So we know, for example, that the addressing the gender gaps is one of the most important challenges related to the environmental transition, in particular for young people. So young women are already overrepresented among those without employment, education, training. 2 in every 3, the so-called NEETs, and they're also underrepresented in unemployment. And among those jobs, for example, in water supply chain, sewage, waste management, remediation activities, they account for only a quarter of these jobs. And that happens also in the digital economy. So women are clearly losing in both transitions, digital and environmental. So we need policies for that. And we need policies, of course, to address racial inequality, to address the impacts on indigenous peoples. So all these policies, they have to come together. And as I said, it's not the invisible hand that will solve that. So my main point here is that that's why we launched this pact. I think the pact that was launched in the COP27, right, in 2022, is one perhaps our little, né, our little contribution, né, to address this issue. Of course, we need much more, né, but at the COP27, together with UNICEF and UNEP, we decided to make our bit to create and then establish these targets, create 1 million jobs, new green jobs by 2030, to green 1 million jobs, existing jobs by 2030, and to support at least 10,000 young entrepreneurs in establishing sustainable green business. So this is have very precise targets that are in place, focusing on policies related to employment creation, entrepreneurship, environmental education and reskilling, and empowerment and youth engagement. We are promoting curricula updates and partnerships across the education and skills development systems in ensuring employability efforts that are aligned with demands of a green economy, as I mentioned. And we would like to invite you to participate in this pact. We have an advisory group, a youth advisory group that are following the idea that nothing without us, nothing about us without us, right? So we have invited an advisory young people to participate on this youth advisory group that will inform and guides our work. And now the success of the green jobs for youth pact depends precisely on the widespread collaboration between government, business, civil society, academia, international organizations that should work together. So that's it. Thank you so much. So that over to you, right?
Yes. Thank you so much, Vinicius Pineiro. You can sit here if you want. So my name is Adriana Zacarias. I am deputy head of the One Planet Network, also the head of GOFR SDGs. I'm very happy to be here. So after this introduction of Vinicius from ILO on the Green Jobs for Youth Pact, we will have a fantastic panel that will look first at what are the enabling policies to really create these green jobs and green skills for youth. And we are here today in the OPN forum talking about on reducing inequalities. You talk about how can we look at the social protection, how do we address the gender gap, the digital gap. So there are many things. When we were launching this pact, the main narrative is if we are really serious about this transition to circular economy, the first question we have to ask is, are we equipping the young generations with the necessary skills? Is the academia, is the universities, the technical schools really updated and giving this new thinking, new paradigm that is needed? And the answers we found is most of the times the answer is no. We need rapid innovation, radical innovation, and that requires new skills. And also another thing that is being discussed in Stockholm Plus 50 and now in the Summit of the Future is the intergenerational responsibility. And one of those is to create these new skills. So that's one thing. So let me now invite my wonderful panelists. So Veronica Tomei, if you please come to the panel. She is the commissioner for the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development of the German Federal Ministry of Environment, Nature Conservation, Nuclear Safety, and Consumer Protection. That's the new thing, better known of the BMUV. So welcome, Veronica. Let me invite also Davina Milenge, the principal program coordinator of climate change, Green Growth Department in the African Development Bank. So please come and join us. Let me invite also Suher Kowis. You have met him, Suher Kousik. He is a global coordinator of the Children and Youth Major Group, and he is member of the Youth Advisory Group that Vinicius was mentioning, because the pact is for youth and with youth. And that's why it's led by a youth advisory group that has 6 representatives from larger youth networks. So, great. And let me just double check if Mr. Clehan Williams from Jamaica is here. Okay, just want to make sure I don't leave anyone behind. He couldn't come, so apologies for that. So we will start now this conversation really looking, and I'm glad the youth are here and we want you to be active. So the main discussion we want to have with you, Veronica, Davina, Zuhair, is about the enabling policies, because it will not happen only with academia, only with the private sector. We need to make sure that the different actors are providing policies that will really facilitate the green jobs and the necessary skills. So I will start with Veronica, looking at the German experience. We learned that according to the 2024 employment outlook of the OECD, amazing numbers that we heard is that more than 1 in 5 jobs in Germany are related to green activities. And only less than 1 in 20, so 5%, are still looking in emission intense activities. And this is really very inspiring. So the question to you is, how does the German ministry do this? What was the type of support, the policies that you put in place to support the demand and supply for green jobs in the green skills? Okay. If it works, does it work? Just turn
Can I take yours? Adriana, gracias. Hello? Yes? Okay. Well, first of all, I'm really happy and excited to be here. I just talked to somebody who was nervous about being at that panel, and we shared the same feeling. So bear with me if I'm a bit nervous. But nervous because I was so excited to be here, because I think it's a very well chosen topic. Thank you so much. And we have heard some thanks to organizers for this panel, but I want really to say a big shout out to Adriana, who is not only the mastermind behind today, but who is always pushing for for youth in green jobs. Really, I've got sometimes I've got the feeling that my WhatsApp blows up. So she's really extremely active. Thank you so much, Adriana. That's what we need. And I really want to answer your question, but before that, I would like, since I'm on this panel, the only one from Germany and also the only one from Europe, I would like to bring also some perspective on the framework conditions that we are living in, and then I go to the enabling factors. Okay, it's maybe also to put these numbers also in perspective. So Germany, like many other or some other countries in Europe, is confronted with a demographic challenge, which is different than from other world regions. We are faced with aging populations. We are in dear need of youth. Which means that we don't have the situation that, at least in Germany, there are some countries in Southern Europe where the situation is different, but we don't know these huge numbers of youth unemployment that are known in other parts of the world. But this is not because we are so great, it's just because we are so old. So we lack really people. And I will come to the point where I will share that this can become also a hindering factor for a green transformation. So, but first of all, to the enabling factors. I think one of the And there again, German system, we are a federal state. Education policy is organized and is implemented on state level, means we've got 16 different education policies, and maybe also 17, because sometimes the federal level implements also something. And another particularity, and I think this is really a key particularity, is traditionally in Germany, we have something which is not very common to other countries. We have a long tradition of vocational training. So, of course, we've got this typical career of universities, but we've got a very strong footing in training people on the job while going still to school. So people finish school, start their profession, and go to professional schools, vocational training. And another factor that is also quite typical for Germany, and it relates a bit to the 4 preconditions that you mentioned now. We've got a strong social protection system. We've got strong social partnership. Germany is known for its social partners. And this vocational training that I referred to is very, very specific to different professions and mostly self-governed. So it's the social partners, the trade unions and the business sector that develops curricula together. So not only do we have 16 different schooling, but we really have this diverse, I would say, ecosystem. And that's a general issue. We always know that the more diverse an ecosystem is, the more resilient it is, and the more innovation that can happen, because there's so different things that you can do. So that might be preconditions that are there, maybe even without taking an active approach. So this might be a kind of invisible hand just born out of tradition. But and coming back to the vocational training, when we were thinking about the decade of sustainable development education, first of all we thought about the schools, but then and well, my kids at the age where I know that right from the beginning of their school career, they have been dealing with sustainable development issues at school. So from kindergarten on, they've been trained to recycle, to take care of the environment, to look after each other. So this is something that is now, I would say, I look to my younger colleagues, but maybe something that is now 20, 25 years old. So it's not just yesterday. But only in the course of this transformation, we thought of, and I still remember discussions, so that must have been around 2016, 2017, we thought about introducing sustainable development curricula into our vocational training. And there I would want to challenge you a bit, or maybe not challenge, but just bring another perspective. Of course, we're talking about green jobs, but in the end, I think you mentioned it and you just tended to it. Every job should be green. So it's not just the green jobs that we want to train people for. So that's the reason why we, of course, we have vocational training now for new kind of jobs like solar panel engineers and name it like that. But we also have sustainable development training in all our classic professions. And I know that we are focusing on youth here, but coming from a country which is aging and being faced with this quick transformation, I just want to point that we need this reskilling, retraining, not only for youth, but also for people like me already being employed and in need of learning all these new things. I would leave it like that and maybe come back afterwards.
Thank you so much, Veronica. And you say so many interesting points, and I want to just touch in few of them. Vocational training is so important, and that's one of the conversations we were having with ILO. In some of the studies that you have, um, is the need now to demystify the vocational training more. I think in Latin America, I don't know how it is in Asia or in Africa as well, that young people, and you tell me, they think that the jobs will come with a master's or PhD, and how many PhD we don't know driving Uber, right? So is the issue now in the demystification of that. The other issue we see now in the energy transition, investment is there, technology is there, but we are missing technical skills. And what it is? Electricians, right? So that's one of the things we want to see. Thank you also for highlighting the importance of looking at reskilling. That's another key thing. So let me now turn to Davina. Davina is a close partner of the African Development Bank, and they have been leading a lot of initiatives, including, of course, the support to establish the African Circular Economy Alliance, and that they are hosting the secretariat. And different initiatives also, like the Just Transition initiative to address climate change in the African context. So, Davina, from your perspective, we would like to learn, what do you think are the most effective initiatives that the bank has developed to support countries in the design of these policies for circular economy?
Well, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I guess those who've been here the whole day have seen me seated up front. But yeah, the topic for this evening, this afternoon, is really very core to what we do as the Africa Development Bank. One, that we are the only resident multilateral development bank in a continent that is going to be growing into 2050. So it's a strategic area for us to be involved in how we skill the youth or reskill the the old, because of where we are at. We are at a time where development is starting to begin. There is the good side that we will not retrofit, so we're going to build clean. But there are also challenges associated with that, that our education systems still belong to the era of the colonial times. And so that hasn't helped in fast tracking, because I think what we are trying to do, even with this topic around circular economy, is how to scale and speed the interventions in a way that we can save the planet. And so going back to circular solutions that the bank has been involved with, first of all, as you mentioned, we host the Africa Circular Economy Alliance, which is a network of countries coming together to peer learn how to drive circularity. We host that secretariat, understanding that by convening and creating the visibility for that, we will be able to touch many countries together, and we don't have to be or have a foothold in all the countries if we have that alliance, because then you have a network where countries speak with each other, and they're able to replicate good practices. So with that, we've created what we call, first of all, on the policy front, it's very, very important that we have regulation and policy. So we are starting with countries' national social circular economy roadmaps. Note that countries didn't have policies on waste management or policies to do with efficiencies. It's very important that they are named circular economy, because without that, it becomes very difficult to find them when we are looking for a circular economy portfolio. And of course, that comes next will be strategies and the tools. Earlier in the day, we talked about the global circularity protocol. These are very important mechanisms and frameworks and tools to have if we are going to drive the change. Two, we also, on the youth side, we have jobs for youth programs. Our current president of the bank, came in with very clear agenda on youth. Enabling youth is a big program at the bank. You might have heard in our climate agenda that we have a context called Youth Adapt. These are challenges for the youth to come up with solutions on climate adaptation, and they get funded every year at COP. So they announce the 10 best challenge winners, and they are funded. So this is part of encouraging the youth to get involved in innovations. But I like the idea of curriculum that the ILO representative mentioned. That is very strategic and very critical, because in Africa, you just mentioned about the jobs. On this continent, 10% is what is in the vocational and they call them TVIC, skills sector. So only 10% is there. And I think much less on the science and technology. And so we cannot transform with those low numbers. It's very, very important that skills and technology transfer become part of the equation around enabling environment. And so we need to find a way of financing that transition. And I think here I'll speak about the role of governments. Government, whether it is central government or municipal level governments, it's very important that they get involved in the transformation. One, as asset owners. For the continent, a lot of capital is held by governments. So in much of mobilizing domestic resources for whatever sector we're trying to transform, in this case, we're looking at jobs for youth, the government has to invest in education. They've done a good job traditionally, but in the whole transformation. So because they are asset owners, they have to be in the blended finance equation. So the public money has to be there to leverage the other capital owners. So we need to have government accountable for this, government leading the charge, and that's why we have the ASEA, because it's a country-led initiative. So in the whole transformation angle, it's important that we have platforms that are led by governments to ensure that we have a quick transformation. Thank you.
Davina, and thank you. And in contrast to Germany, African continent is the youngest population. We know that it's amazing for you who doesn't know. The average age in Africa is 18. It's very young generation, and the trends show that it will increase. You say something very important. You say at the beginning that the education is embedded still in this colonial time. But at the same time, the government needs to invest in education. So the question will be, which type of education, right? And if I may, so the follow-up question from you, Davina, will be how to ensure that that investment in education is really updated or is innovative. And the second, maybe looking at the vocational, I know the Tibet is quite a strong sector, but how would you suggest then that investment in the education that is really looking ahead?
So by saying traditional was that it does not match the skills on the market. You mentioned electricians for the solar panels. We will have PhDs. You mentioned PhDs driving Ubers. Maybe it's good to have very sophisticated Uber drivers. It's a service. But for the transformative sector, we lack those skills. And what we do, either we export our raw materials because we are not having the skills, of course, the capital to transform these resources, and that steals away from the value and the capital that would have remained on the continent. So let me just say this, that With a big population that we have, with the natural resources that we have, if we could have that transformation happening, then the market would respond to the resources to create value for both the youth dividend that we have and the natural capital dividend that we have. Thanks.
Thank you. Excellent. So the investment in education should be in the transformative sectors and also making more value of the natural resources. So let me now turn to Suher again, and then the question to you is: how are the children and youth major group and the youth organizations engaging, advocating for the integration of intergenerational responsibility, green skills, equity? I know you've been very active in UNEA, in the COPs. You are going now to the Summit of the Future. So, how is that? And then you've been also advocating for this um, real engagement, no? How you call it? Meaningful engagement of youth. So, what's this advocating work that you are doing to really ensure that youth are equipped with the necessary green skills?
So yeah, thank you for that question. I think to that we will get the opportunity to brief a bit about what CYMG does. So the logo that you are seeing on the screen, the greenest one, I don't know the specific color code, but that's perhaps called the bottle green, right? So you can see CYMG, which is the Children and Youth Major Group to UNEP. So this is actually an umbrella mechanism for youth networks, organizations, and individuals committed to addressing climate change, biodiversity loss, and chemicals based on pollution issues. So, we are the constituency, we are the formal mechanism and the mandated mechanism to United Nations Environment Program to facilitate the participation, meaningful and effective participation of young people in policy processes. So, that means our mandate is to engage young people in the policy negotiation. But at the same time, we are not obviously a member state or a party, so we cannot negotiate, but we can provide advisory opinions, we can provide suggestions, we can make statements and engage with high level ministers and the officials to make sure that our opinions, our expectations and demands are reflected. So obviously, as a mechanism, as CYMG, we don't do skilling or reskilling because that's not our responsibility. But our organizations who are working on ground, they do that, and they also face a lot of challenges, right? As Adriana was saying, that Africa is incredibly young, right? And so does Asia and many other global south countries and the regions. So we have a lot of young people who are facing a lot of challenges in their own country to promote green jobs or perhaps acquire green skills. So we count on their lived experience. We bring that to the policy negotiations and we inform the negotiator. These are the challenges that our young people are facing. So whatever you're setting as goals through the climate convention, through the biodiversity convention, through other instruments, that has to be solution oriented. So you have to solve these problems through the policy instruments that you are creating or the decisions you are making in every COP or every high level meetings, perhaps the OPN forum and others, so that the young people can literally contribute to the goals that you're setting and not making it just a document or a paper where the convention is just mentioned and not implemented. So that's our primary work. So now few engagement of avenues or milestones that I want to share is that you may already heard about the United Nations Environment Assembly, UNIA, right? You may heard about the climate COP. Many of you have attended, and here you have the OPN forum where Youth for Climate slash UNDP funded these amazing young people who are working on ground on green jobs, and your experience matters, right? And we are bringing that through the platform. So we want to connect more with you in the coming days and also bring you to our own major group. But what I was saying, that through the engagement in the negotiations and the big high level meetings of the United Nations, we are actually making sure, we are actually thriving to make sure that our expectations, our demands are incorporated. adopted. Some of the successful, advocacy interventions we have, for instance, that last UNIA in Nairobi, I mean the United Nations Environment Assembly at the sixth session, we successfully could negotiate a resolution on the sustainable lifestyle and could get the Green Just for Youth Pact incorporated. So did we with other resolutions that were adopted, like the Ocean Action, and then other like chemicals based on pollution and other resolutions, because green jobs is a thing that touch the basis on different sectors, right, and the skills, and it's a matter of our existence on the planet, because if we don't have jobs, all these instruments are not going to feed us. So that's all of our work, and that's how we are doing. So I'm just cutting my short because we are lacking time. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Suher. And this reminds me also one of the dialogues we had with youth, when the youth delegate women from Colombia, and she says something very important. She say youth jobs are peace, and in communities where there's no job, we know violence, and we know that is more vulnerable for young girls as well. So, yes, excellent. We are running late of time. I have a second question for you. I will ask you to be very brief, or we can ask just to have a takeaway. Vinicius, I will invite you at the end just to have some reaction. So I want to highlight also the role of my dear colleague Veronica Tomei. She's one of the main donors of Go for SDGs. So, and I've been bombarding her with the information on that. But international cooperation is very important. She's also supporting PAGE initiative. So, Veronica, I understand, and Germany has a different demographic, but I know you are very engaged in the international negotiations. So, how do you see what type of strategies can enhance really the interministerial and the international cooperation to support these green skills, the reskilling, and really ensure that there is an inclusive, green, sustainable transition?
Thank you very much, Adriana, and thank you very much, Suhai. I would like to enhance immediately your points. At UNEA, I was at UNEA as well. I was also very happy that Go for SDGs was included, the pact was included in a Sustainable Lifestyles initiative. And at UNEA 6, the German delegation included 2 youth delegates. Those are our 2 youth delegates that we nominate each year to take part in international sustainable development negotiations, traditionally for the HLPF. So sometimes in some years we have enough funding to send them also to other conferences, like also the plastic negotiations, but they were also at UNEA, and we think that this is extremely important, and also not to be just a lip service, but this year they were the ones that presented Germany's view on SDG 16 review. Last year they chose SDG 11. So then behind the German sign, there was a youth delegate speaking for Germany. I think Adriana, I think it's extremely important, the issue that you raised, because when we spoke in the first round about enabling conditions, and I think that when we talk about the transformation to a more green economy, then it's a whole of society and whole of governance approach. And you were talking about the strategies that ministries amongst themselves can adopt. And I've just recently looked it up, but we have a number of German governments, German ministries that have each ministry an individual advisory youth council. And we just had very recently, for the very first time, a meeting of all these advisory youth councils together. Some of them are the same membership, and some it's overlapping, and some not at all. So that was quite interesting. And at the Ministry for Economy and Climate Action, we have a body which was a couple of years ago in my ministry, the Environment Ministry. We have a body which is it's called Climate Alliance, and it's a multi-stakeholder body. And one, we call it a bank. So really like in Parliament, one bank is the youth bank. So it's an integral part of this alliance and of this climate alliance, and all the opinions of the climate alliance that feed immediately into the ministry's policies. They are composed out of these groups, and one major component is the youth group. In our ministry, in the environment ministry, we have a very strong youth cooperation as well. And since I've got a colleague here from the European Sustainable Development Network sitting in the room, I just want to highlight that we are also organizing now for, I think, the fourth or fifth time. We have organized a youth segment to the annual conference of the European Sustainable Development Network. So we have different hinges, I would say, where we have create possibilities for youth to engage in a meaningful way. And that might be also one of the reasons why we have advocated so strongly also in the past, and I hope there will be a good result for the the Pact for New Generations now that is hopefully being adopted in 2 weeks' time. I was
Excellent.
short enough.
Thank you so much for giving these concrete examples of meaningful engagement of youth in Germany and in Europe. So I think, Suher, those are good models to replicate. Davina, very quickly, and I will turn. I'm not following my script now. So you were talking also about the importance of government investment, looking at education, but what will be now turning to the bank? What are the key investments that you see the banks, development banks, should do really to accelerate the equipment of green skills for youth?
So, as a bank, of course, we go through our key, maybe key drivers of development because we're a development bank. One, for our continent, is energy access. As you know, for Africa, 600 million are still without electricity. So that is a big challenge for any sort of development. You're going to need energy, but it's also an opportunity. And so behind that opportunity, we've created what is called around the Sahara, the belt that is the desert south of Morocco. And that for that, because it's a desert, it has high radiation. And we've created what is called Desert to Power. It's a 10 gigawatt capacity solar program around 11 countries that are part of that region, the Sahel region. That comes with jobs. Now, the scaling of the capacities that are needed would go with that. So that program includes jobs for youth. And what we've done to make sure that we can be held accountable for that, we're coming up with, we started it with gender. It's called a gender marker for all our projects. 70% of our projects have to have a very clear indicator on the impact on women. We're starting the same for the youth, so that there's very clear youth indicator, a youth marker in our projects. It's very easy to say, oh, we've created jobs, but what kind of jobs were they when you do your log frame for the project? So we really want to have very tangible ways to track how these jobs are generated. Two, our private sector department is working on a youth, they call it a youth bank, ideally to try and create dedicated financing mechanism for the youth. And what we know is it might not look like traditional way that we do business. One, understanding that to date, uh, 4 out of 5 Africans own a mobile phone. So they transact their business on their mobile phone. Half of them have internet. And those are the youth, mostly the youth. And so as we revolutionize how we do business, that will be our new target market. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing this very concrete example. So, Suher, I know, and I'm very happy that after the OPN forum, you are going to the Summit of the Future. I know you are organizing some events, and we are doing a joint side event. So, what is for you? What will be the key messages that you are bringing as the youth constituency, and how do you see what will be an ideal expected outcome that will advance the youth, the meaningful engagement of youth and the green skills?
Yeah, I must say that's a tricky question. We cannot maybe presume some of the outcomes of the summit of the future, but obviously we can always talk about our expectations. Yeah, it's correct. But I'm not going to New York for some reason. Obviously, the reality is that as a global South youth, it's not easy for us to get the US visa. So I'm coming to Brazil. I love global South more, and I'm sending someone and another colleague who has like a global North passport to New York to organize that. So yeah, my colleagues and my spirit will be there in Newark. We are organizing a youth forum on future of the environment, where we will be discussing the jobs of the future, the science policy and people interface, and the intergenerational collaboration for the meaningful engagement of young people to protect the rights of young people to live in a sustainable, healthy, sustainable, clean environment. So the expected outcomes, obviously, there we already are engaging the top level UN officials like UNEP executive director will be there. The UNIA 7 president, the minister from the Oman will be there too, and some other presidencies are also convening the forum with us, like the G20 presidency. Brazil is there, and then EU presidency Hungary will be there too. So we are actually looking for increased commitments from their side for contributing and investing for the skilling of young people to thrive in a green economy, and obviously supporting their engagement in the policies relevant, in the policy negotiations and the discussions relevant to this environment and the green jobs and the skills. Apart from that, we are also having another session, a side event, official side event with UNEP, ILO, UNICEF, and some other partners, member states. I think we have Tunisia, sorry, Cyprus, India, Portugal, where we'll be obviously engaging with around like 500 people in a very big hall, and we will obviously discuss about all these challenges that young people are facing when it comes to green jobs and skills, and then we will put forward some suggestions. At the same time, I'm just adding a few successful advocacy strategies. Some of our colleagues who works on the green jobs and economy were following the Summit of the Future process from the very beginning, and we are engaged in the consultations on the drafts of the Pact for the Future and the Declaration on the Future Generations, where we try to put forward more environment component, obviously as suggestions, promoting green jobs for young people, and then obviously there are a lot of suggestions like the plastics treaty and the climate one and other things. But I think in some cases we have been a bit frustrated that a lot of components that we expected to be in the drafts, and I think it gradually got updated, right? We have never seen enough reference to environment, because for the Summit of the Future, environment is not a priority, but youth is a priority. That's a good thing. We are capitalizing on that. We tried our best, but we are not obviously getting demotivated, even if it's not there, because I know that our youngsters who are here will bringing this to the ground and obviously implement whatever we discussed today. Yeah, we have a lot of other plans in the coming days. We are trying to engage in the UNFCCC COP. Perhaps I'll not be there. My colleagues will be there from other youth constituencies and obviously the youth advisory group. We are also engaging in some processes which is not perhaps got a lot of attention but is successful and has more potentiality to provide further inputs to the contribute to the green jobs, like the Montreal Protocol one, where the new target is to phase down the HFCs and contribute more for the sustainable cooling and energy efficiency. We are actually organizing a youth forum on climate protection there, where our priority is to focus more on the gender mainstreaming and then skilling of young people in the energy sector to create more, you know, uh, the jobs that needs vocational training that Adriana and many of us were mentioning. So yeah, these are the successful things. Hopefully, we're going to do. We are going to be successful, and obviously, we have a lot of past examples that I'm not telling again. But I always, welcome you to visit our website to have a look on those. Thank you.
Excellent. Great to see you are so active in so many different topics. Vinicius, let me turn to you. Any reaction and a quick takeaway before we move to the other part?
Hello. Yeah, no, it was an amazing panel. Thank you so much. I just have perhaps two or three quick points. The first one is thank you, Veronica, for bringing the demographic transition, right? Because I think when we discuss youth, you have to discuss youth into a dynamic perspective, because the youth eventually you become old as well, right? So we're talking about how population is structured and how we are dealing with the different transitions. And the most structured transitions we have is precisely the environmental transition, the digital transition, and the demographic transition. And that happens in the context of high inequalities, political polarization, and of course, the we're all scared about security and war, and you're close to that scenario, no? So these are the main things that are happening today. And when we discuss demographic transition, and and I'm speaking from my background as a scholar on development studies, in the 80s, 70s, 80s, people were concerned about how to get rich before become older, right? So that was more or less the challenge of the nations, right? So basically, increase productivity. So when we reach a stage in which the ratio between economic active population and inactive population deteriorates, so we have enough productivity, and people, basically your retirees can be sustained by your workforce. Now that's will be shrinking. Now, that was the challenge in many of the countries in Europe, in Japan, to some extent US, they've gone through it. And then they realized, oh, it's not only about getting rich, but getting rich in a sustainable way. So they need to change, the entire development model to adapt. And they can do that because they have this enabling environment. For Africa, it's a different thing. No? So it's not about getting rich before getting older, but getting rich in a sustainable way and in a different way. So it's not going to be replicate the same development model, but a different one. So that's what we're discussing now. And some countries like Brazil and China is moving very fast, actually, in terms of getting older, are in a kind of midway. So because they have to really to accelerate that. So I think this is a very important discussion. The second one is about green jobs. And when we talk about green jobs, the first thing is to measure it. Because if you don't get measured, we can't manage it, right? So we need to have very detailed models looking at occupations and accounts, looking at the employment profiles, and identifying what is a green job. And then there are three types of layers. The one is what is the green job, the job in the green sectors, which are the sectors related to 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 environmental sustainability. The second layer is greening the existing jobs. And that's why we also have this commitment in the pact, right? And the example, the clear example, is the construction sector. Now, that has to go through a greening process, the entire construction sector and other sectors. Then there is the job that it's not green and is not going to be green and has to disappear, because if you want to be serious about transition, you have to phase out fossil fuel. We have to phase out coal mining. So these jobs, they're not going to go green. They have to disappear. So that's basically what I think we should be aiming at. So that's what how we in the ILO we put the three things. And finally, I think I totally agree, Zuha. I think the participation of young people in this debate is so essential because this is about the future, not for you, for your kids, and that's the basis of the sustainability. So these are my main takeaways. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much to all these excellent panelists, and thank you, Vinicius. And very happy also that we have the three UN agencies here. So I'm gonna give now the floor to our colleague from UNICEF, Youssef Abdel Jalil, for the next panel. We won't have time for questions and answers. Unless there's a burning question, while the new panel starts, I think we can take one question. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Adriana. I will start, for the sake of time, calling upon the panelists to come and join me. Okay. So let me start by asking Bettina Susanna Hoffman. Yes, see. And then Alicia Moreno. See. And then Aulia Hegarsal. So this is the last session, but it's not the least important session, as you know. Not at all. And I want to go back to the pact for green jobs for youth because my colleague and friend Vinicius has really elaborated on this pact, and it's for us. It's really a serious pact in this regard in terms of our commitment to the green job for youth. And I would like to bring 2 points before we start our discussion, because this discussion will be focused on the skills, on the knowledge, and on the experiential learning. That's the focus of this last session. But before I do that, I think we in UNICEF are in the business of children, which are from 0 to 18. And I think it's important to keep in mind there will be a focus here on the university level. But there is an important need to focus on greening the whole cycle of learning, and it's not just learning in the primary school, in the life learning we need to green it. And in this regard, it's important that we have the seeds of environmental education in preschool, in primary school. We are now starting a program in Belém, Pará, in the state of Pará, about environmental education. This is an important thing to highlight here, and as well as give importance to what Veronica mentioned about vocational training, technical training. That's a key one in this regard. And the second point I wanted to make is I want to make sure that that you know that our commitment is clear, and we should also, in a way, green the concept of human capital. We should look at it again together with the World Bank, with UNDP, to know what is this human capital that we are talking about. There is a need to have a cognitive capital already in the first few years of life. Then we need to continue and look at what are the skills, and we will get to this. So I have 3 panelists here to look at some of these issues. We will try to respect time. My first panelist is let me actually. Do you mind if I make a change in the plan? No. So what I thought we should do is that since we have a young entrepreneur here that is actually doing the job in this regard, and her name is Miss Aulia Hergarsari. Miss Aulia Hergarsari, and she is a youth entrepreneur at the Garda Pangan Foundation, a food bank which is committed to combating food loss and waste in Indonesia. She is also a winner of the Youth for Climate Award in 2024 for the Open Planet Network Forum. So we want to give her an applause. And I want to say that her name, Aulia, is partly Arabic. It means the first. So that's why probably I made it. So, Alia, as a young entrepreneur, what green or soft skills have been most crucial for you, and how do you believe collaboration can be fostered to create more opportunity to youth in sustainable sector? And I just want to add something which doesn't complicate. If you know of any innovative approach, especially in the area of the food sector, please share with us. Okay, should I?
So, first of all, thank you so much for having me and sit right here with the honorable speaker, Mr. Yusuf. So, the first crucial green skills that I can address is the ability to discern the environmental issues in our surrounding or keenly observe the local problems. So, if I can say, Garda Pangan itself is driven by the concern over a substantial food loss and waste in Indonesia. In fact, food loss and waste is the largest component of waste in Indonesia, but still largely remain unaddressed. So yeah, that's why we choose the ability to discern. And the second one is the continuous improvement. So continuous improvement is the key of growth of Garda Pangan because as the part of Garda Pangan, initially, the youth is not expert about food loss and waste. So, um, sorry, um, the continuous improvement is important because it makes us keep improving and learning, and we have the determinations to achieve our goal and accomplish and then um there's one saying, actually, sailing while building the ship. So it means that the journey may not always perfect, but for us, keep improving and keep doing the assessment as the evaluation is important. And then there's the other value. It is being not too complacent, so we're not easily satisfied with the good results. And the last one is the resiliency. It is important um, to keep the value, and then it reminds us with our value when the things get tough. Yeah, and then actually in Indonesia, the green skills is start to rise because some of the schools, some of the university, they start to uh, do the eco living, and they sometimes invite us to give the workshops or um, do some seminars there. So yeah, that's the crucial green skills that we can address for now, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And your I, I mean, your faith and your commitment and your drive is encouraging us very much. And you mentioned something earlier that we need to be discerning. We need to be learning about environment, and you mentioned the food sector. And the food sector is going to be key for the green job and for the greening in general. So thank you for that. I'm going to go now quickly to Susan Hoffman, or Bettina Susan Hoffman, who is the representative of ARIUSA. ARIUSA is the Alliance of the Ibero-American Networks of University for Sustainability and the Environment, and of the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil Sustainability Network. So it's a large program, no, isn't it, to be in charge of all of that. And I have a question for you, or a question and a half. The first one is, how can the project developed by Ariusa with UNEP support accelerate the diagnosis and action on green skills and green job in higher education in general, and especially for a circular economy in plastic? And I want to add something as a university professor What green skills or soft skill would you consider essential for a student for the future? Thanks a lot. Can I give you this one? Yeah.
Okay, I think I take this one. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I think it's a great opportunity to discuss issues that we are facing, that I'm facing at my everyday work. Um, I think most of universities in Latin America uh, haven't been subjected for major revisions of their curricula. So our curricula, they are not really well prepared for our sustainability challenges. And what we can observe, but what we also don't have, we don't have this official diagnosis of what we are lacking or how much are we lacking of our preparation. So what Ariusa is promoting to have these diagnoses, to have numbers, and to have official recommendations, I think this is something very important for us now in order to promote these revisions that we need to do. And um, generally, universities, they are very rigid in their curricula because you have the staff, the professors, which are highly specialized. So to bring changes and to bring innovation in curricula is a hard challenge. Uh, Having official recommendations, having a network as our user backing certain recommendations will facilitate certainly to bring these new issues like circular economy, because when we look at our curricula, I think even climate change hasn't been brought enough to our curricula, and circular economy a lot less, because it's even a newer issue than climate change. So when we look at literacy in climate change or literacy in circular economy for plastics, especially, universities are lagging a lot behind. We see these issues in post graduation, but in our graduation curricula, it hasn't arrived. And I'm speaking from the engineering department. So, at least in the engineering department, it should be standard, and it's not. So, in other curriculum, when we look at social sciences, it's lagging even more behind. And then I'm coming to the second question, right? Because when we talked about a lot about vocational training and what are the exact skills that we would need, and my vision, especially for Latin America, is yes, sure, we should strengthen a lot vocational training, and we need to strengthen skills and technology. But what I think is more important is that we bring basic literacy in environmental and social questions to all our curricula. So it has to be in social sciences and life sciences and in the engineering sciences. I need my students to be literate in circular economy and to be literate in especially climate change. And this doesn't happen yet. So I think we need to bring a deep understanding of our challenges to all the curricula in order to bring new mindsets. And I think it goes a lot together with what Aulia said. It's a beautiful name. What do we need? I need this generation to come with a certain mindset to understand what does it mean. And a term that I really actually prefer is a regenerative economy. Even I think it's stronger. I have to bring the terms of strong sustainability to this generation, because we can't work anymore with this ESG, what is a lot more marketing than real sustainability. And for this, I need this deep understanding. I need I need the youth to come to the market as entrepreneurs willing to face all these difficulties, because it's different than in Europe. We don't have these green jobs ready. There is not that big market of green jobs. Actually, I need to prepare the students to go out there and to do the green job, even uh, even that there are a lot of obstacles to that. So this, I think, is the key message that I would like to bring here, that it's about literacy, about deep understanding, and about the skills to do it, even though it is really difficult.
Thank you very much. That's That's a very valuable perspective, and it converges with what we said earlier, that we need that basic literacy to even start earlier in life. Those are to be foundational and then continue at the primary school, at the first level of secondary school, at the second level of secondary school, and all of. But you mentioned that the gap analysis is still going on regarding what's needed. And the university, we need them to play an important role in this regard. We're not down in playing the role of tertiary education. We just need to build for it, and then they play this role, and they transform the curriculum in this regard. Yeah. No, thank you very much in this regard. Now I'm going to move, for the sake of time, to our third, last but not least. That's Alicia Moreno. She's a professor in environment and regional trade agreements at the faculties of law and economic sciences at the University of Buenos Aires in Argentina. Alicia, I have a question and a half. The first one is, as the next generation needs to be equipped with the necessary green skills, how can universities scale up their green skills, and align curricula for transformative green jobs and market? And if you can talk a little bit of how can we foster collaboration with youth in this regard? Over to
Okay.
you. See.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Adriana, especially for her great job pushing this agenda. Two first challenges. First, communication. Do we all know what is green skills? And necessary green skills are the same for the global south, for the north? No. So this communication is necessarily to be pushed. I know UNEP is working on innovation and communication. It is in the strategy, the UNEP strategy I read, and so it's very important to tackle this challenge. The other challenge, to be short, is we need to do we have the market demand for these green skills? We are in this community, it's okay. We know what it is. We know what we need. But does the private sector or the other sector, the consumer sector, demanding this? Are we aware that we need still a lot more of demanding in order to push all the green skills agenda? That's the 2 points I want to remark.
Yeah, no, and those are honest points as well. And I saw also, I heard today from Davina when she was talking that we need to develop a taxonomy about all of these things. I think it's key so that we are reading from the same book. I heard somebody mention, in a UN conference about building back better. And somebody said, what is building back better? Is it blah, blah, blah? So we want to avoid the situation in which nobody is telling us green job or green is blah blah. So I think it's important to develop that communication that you mentioned in this regard, and also create the demand, or at least develop the demand side for this type of green job that we have. So now I won't ask you a question, but I would like to give you the opportunity to add an important point or 2 points to this discussion that we've had about skill, about knowledge, about experiential learning, about also the realism of all of this. And I will start with you, Susanna.
Yeah, I think what is very central here is what are the green jobs that we offer for our youth here in Latin America, and it's so different than, for example, we don't have the circular economy action plan in Latin America in place, which is already in place in Europe. So there are so many regulations in place in Germany, which in Germany or in Europe, for example, which provide these green jobs market and that we don't have here in Latin America. So I think, and this is, I'm taking from the former panel where Beatrice said that a lot of things have to go together here because we don't have the time. We have to come together. We can't wait for politics to generate the green jobs market. We need to prepare our students for a market which actually isn't in place yet. So this is why I think it's so important to talk about the mindset and to talk about this regenerative mindset that we need our youth to go out there, and when they come into this corporate um, reality where it's not about green, actually it's about money, so they have to stand their man there and say no, we have to do the greening from within. I think this is something that we in the global south we have to face, and this is very difficult, but it's our reality and it has to go together because we can't wait.
I would like to address Bettina's words about curriculas. It's a very complex process, decision-making complex process. In my case, University of Buenos Aires is like a small city, 300,000 community, students, staff, professors. Decision making is a democratic process in University of Buenos Aires. We have democratic elections, representative of students and of professors gather in a council which make the decision on curriculums, finance, organization of the whole university. So it's easy to change a curricula. No, and I go back to what I said before. If there is not a clear demand on that, engineers, lawyers, no talk, will be okay. When it is necessary, we'll do it. So it's difficult. I
Thank you.
yes.
Okay. So, in line with what Susan said, and it is our job to make the young have enough literacy about the greens, right? So, actually, in our case, most of the volunteers come to Garapangan, they have no idea about what is food waste, what is food loss, and while they join our program to rescuing the food surplus and distributing to the food insecure community, they help us to deliver the message of the food surplus. They also have the ability to learn about environment while they have no idea about it, and they have no background about it too. And then um the important point is like now they become our agent of change because they help us to disseminate the awareness of the food waste and food loss. And uh, s- I can say that it's equally significant because Gardapangan become a place where the young people in my town or the other town around it learn about environment, discovering the green skills, the green jobs. Also, some of the volunteers now are discovering the green jobs. For example, um, they join research about how to count the food loss and waste in some place in Indonesia, and also um, they also have the ability to be a public speaker to deliver the food loss and waste too. And then um, the last one is I can proudly say that most like 80% of volunteer in Gadapangan is young people. So it's like um, we are proud because we can gather the young people and they can learn green skills. They can discover green jobs through our movement. So yeah, in this process, we try to keep learning and keep improving about the skills, and we try also to enrich our literacy about it, so they have both like skills and theory, they are in the same level. So that's the message.
Thank you very much. I would like you to give. So I will not be able to summarize everything. Is straightforward. I want to really thank this panel. Which brought I put 3 or 4 points. First, we are inspired by the pioneers, including you, in Indonesia and others. That's an important element for us. We are in agreement about defining and also being clear about the taxonomy of what greening. We are also in agreement that we need to green the whole life learning cycle. That's an important one in that regard, and also know where it create the demand and know where is the demand for this in this regard. And then one point I wanted to add is that I heard Vinicius mentioning that there are some jobs that we should not have. I one time what we should not have. I heard one time that the Stone Age ended not because the stones are no longer around. So the oil and the gas could end. We can still have oil and gas, but so to keep that in mind. So I want to thank you, and really, Adriana, thank you very much. And I want to confirm the commitment of UNICEF to work with UNEP and ILO as part of this arrangement of the Pact Green Job for Youth. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Muito obrigado. Thank you very much. So, Adriana, you want to come here? We want you around here to say something. We want Adriana around. you know, you want to-
Thank you. Thanks to all of you for staying late. If you have questions, you can come and we can answer any question. Oh, yeah. So thanks so much. I'm really happy that we have done this together with Suher, who is in the Youth Advisory Group, and the through agencies. The idea is really to continue, and Alicia, just to respond to that, in the pact, we are working with the private sector. So the idea is to have this conversation on what are the demands for green skills, matching them with academia. So that's why we really were happy to have here Bettina with us, Susanna, Bettina. We are working with university networks on this, and yeah, updating the curricula is important. And we are also aware that is not only in the high education sector, but is also in the Tibet, in the vocational education. And then the third element is the policy. So we're working on these three. So thank you so much. Very happy for you to join, and let's continue the work.